repeatedly held at the end of his prayers, God bless America. We have forgotten that this is not a true democracy. How can one justify a system where a large number of the elected officials have 7-figure bank accounts and 6-figure salaries? How can you justify a system where the wishes of the majority are not honored, and in a bid to create a dynasty, a family can ambush an election?
Wow. Mercy.
We've quickly forgotten that freedom and liberty are illusionary metaphors in this country. Even as our leaders call for a protection of our civil rights and freedoms, have we forgotten what it means to be driving while black? Have we forgotten about racial profiling? Have we forgotten about affirmative action? Whose rights are we protecting anyhow? Is it the rights of the multinational corporations who, in the name of capitalism, exploit the citizens of Afghanistan, China, Mexico, Pakistan, and Egypt, and other nations that we deplore? Are we protecting the freedom to indulge in luxurious goods, a freedom that is enabled and sustained by our third world slaves? While the currency is engraved with the words, "In God we trust," there is absolutely nothing in this country's European history that can verify this to be a truism for our government. In every era of European American history, a group of people has been victimized and exploited. America claims to be a Christian nation, but there's very little, as we look at Christianity and the practices of this nation historically, that can give it that right or that honor. In fact, as I study my Bible, I find that there is absolutely no nation upon the face of this earth upon which God has granted his approval. Even Israel, who God had handpicked and protected, failed to represent him. If the chosen Israel was not able to receive the blessings of God, what makes us think that our law-breaking, sin-struck, vice-filled societies can? No earthly nation, I declare today, can truly represent God. Christians, I maintain, should not be mesmerized by the hypnotic hype of the moment, but need to stay sober and vigilant while the adversary walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Those who call themselves children of God need to acknowledge that God does not have an American zip code. God is a universal God who is not confined to national boundaries. However, in spite of these realities, many of us have bought into this nationalistic propaganda. We've adopted a juvenile attitude towards so-called foreigners. We are xenophobic, if you please. We applaud when President Bush taunts, "If you mess with one American, you mess with us all." We feel no shame when a U.S. Senator taunts God with his declaration, "God have mercy on Afghanistan," because we won't. Many of us have bought into what Robert Jewett calls the Captain America complex. We've turned into a nation of vigilantes and are forming our own misguided posses. Since the terrorist attack, we find that assaults against people with Asian characteristics have rocketed. Many people are viewing our Muslim brothers and sisters as the enemy. In fact, Croatian President Stipe Mesic had to remind us that if Islam is to be blamed for the events of September 11, then all of Christianity must have to take the blame for the Holocaust. Yet, our xenophobia, our fear of those who are different than we, has led us to pounce on a vulnerable scapegoat, Afghanistan. The term Taliban has become synonymous with all that is evil. By now, we have all heard about the atrocities of the Taliban in Afghanistan. We have seen documentaries about how they suppress their women and restrict education. This is the backwards, uneducated, unchristian, undemocratic enemy that needs to be eradicated. Bush keeps referring to this as a fight between good and evil. Only evil people, he says, can conduct such atrocious acts of terrorism. Now, while I acknowledge that the Taliban and Osama bin Laden are indeed sponsors of evil, I maintain that many of us who applaud at Bush's words have a short-term memory. We have forgotten that state sponsors terrorism took place right here, unabated for centuries in the United States of America. We've forgotten about the millions who were abducted from the Gold Coast of Africa and taken to a strange land. We've forgotten about the millions who died in the Middle Passage. We've forgotten about the millions who froze to death in freezing shacks as they tried to adjust to the cold winters of America. We've forgotten about the thousands and hundreds of thousands who were beaten by their vindictive masters. We've forgotten about the many who were lynched during Jim Crow. We've forgotten about the tens and thousands of political prisoners who are behind bars because their limited budget kept them on crack, while their wealthy white counterparts on cocaine are free to walk the streets. We've forgotten that the terrorists Nathan Forrest, Christopher Columbus, and George Custer are revered as national heroes. We've forgotten about the state-sponsored terrorism during the riots in Watts and Chicago. We've forgotten about the fire hoses, the Tuskegee experiment, the disproportionate number of blacks among the grunts and the armed forces. We've forgotten about the Trail of Terrors and the Cherokees' forced exodus to Oklahoma. We've forgotten about the CIA involvement in bringing down foreign governments and their recent covert sponsorship of Osama bin Laden himself. We've forgotten how U.S. greed destroyed the Jamaican economy. We've forgotten about the World Bank's exploitation of African nations. And I declare today that no nation on this planet is immune from committing evil acts. The American government is as evil as the Taliban. The British government is as deceitful as the ruling family of Saudi Arabia. The Jamaican government is as cutthroat as the Taiwanese. All nations inhabit and propagate evil. Indeed, it is in recognition of America's role in world evil that U.S. Representative Barbara Lee of California cast the sole vote against aggressive reaction to the attack, as she charged this nation with hypocrisy. She realized that before we move to take out the splinter out of another nation's eye, we must remove the law.